I was at the beach one day, and I needed to use the restroom. And so I go to the restroom, and before I go into the restroom, I notice that there's 3 restrooms. There was a male restroom, there was a female restroom, and then there was a restroom that labeled P-O-D. And I didn't know what that meant. And so I ran over to the worker. I said, "Sir, what does this mean? Which bathroom do I use? The male one or the POD? What is this?" And he looked at me and smiled. He said, "Sir, here in UAE, we don't use the word handicap, we don't use the word disabled. We use the term people of determination." It's an honor to be here with you here today. The reason why it's an honor is because rooms like this is where real transformation happens. This is a room where real decisions make a difference in the world, and this is where real change is going to change the world forever. So again, would you please give yourself a round of applause for being here today? This is also a great honor because I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not even supposed to be alive. You see, if we look up at the slide, in 1996, I was born with a super rare genetic disorder. My parents went in for a late ultrasound. They sat them down and they pulled the baby up on the screen. And suddenly everybody started to freak out. They said, "What's wrong? What's going on with my baby?" They said, "Well, from the looks of it, it doesn't look like your baby's limbs are being developed." They said it looked like he's missing his legs, his arms, and his face might be messed up. In that moment, they classified me with what we call hand-heart syndrome. Hand-heart syndrome is a super rare genetic disorder that either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. At the time of my birth, I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen this happen to. And out of the 12, 8 of those babies passed away due to undeveloped organs. They gave me a 30% chance to live. In that moment, my parents made a decision. The decision to focus on the 30% chance of me living versus the 70% chance of me dying. My mom went forth with the pregnancy. As soon as I was born, they took me and rushed me into a private room to do tests on my organs. And I'm proud to say that my organs came back 100% healthy. And the only thing that was affected were my limbs. If we go to the next slide, when I was born, my parents were very scared. They had no idea what my life was going to look like. My dad took me and he took me into a private room. He told me this as an adult. He took me into a private room and he looked me in my eyes and he said, "Nick, I promise you I will be your arms and legs until my very last breath." Now, the reason why I share that is because the environment my parents put me in cultivated me as a leader and ultimately allowed me to change the world. You see, from an early age, my parents sat me down. They said, "Nick, the world's not going to adapt to you. You're going to have to adapt to the world. You have to figure out how to do things Nick's way." And so I'll give you an example. From an early age, my parents would sit me down and they would put my food in front of me. And they would say, "Figure it out." Or they would put my clothes in front of me and they would say, "Figure it out." And what that did was 2 things, 2 valuable insights that all of us as leaders can be reminded of. You see, all of you are very smart individuals. We have some of the most smartest people in the world. But what I've realized teaching over 1 million people live from stage is most leaders don't need to be taught, they need to be reminded. And so let me remind you of 2 powerful insights that can change the quality of our life and change the quality of our people's life. The first thing, when we create the right environment, we must understand and identify our relationship with failure. You see, oftentimes humans want to run away from failure. They don't want to experience failure. But the truth is, the worst failure that you can have in your life is not attempting, not executing, not implementing, not making the decision. The more we fail, the more we get clarity. The more we fail, the more we get data. The more we fail, the more we can execute and get to the next level. So that's the first insight. The second thing that that environment cultivated me into was I was forced to become solution-oriented. One of the biggest patterns that keeps most people stuck is they focus most of their energy on the problem and not the solution. And if you have a small problem, you can focus all your energy on the problem and it becomes massive and overwhelming. And so with the right environment, it forced me to be solution-oriented. And I can assure you, we must lead from the front. And so if we can cultivate environments that allow us to be solution-oriented, it's going to trickle down into our people, and ultimately, we can change the world that way. You see, what I've realized is that the greatest leaders in the world sometimes don't have the answers. The greatest leaders in the world ask great questions to lead their people to the right answers. Let me remind you that the quality of your life comes down to the quality of the questions you ask yourself on a day-to-day basis. The quality of your people comes down to the quality of the questions you ask yourself on a day-to-day basis. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make us think. I want to ask you a question. My question for you is this. If you look up at the screen, to my fellow leaders, are we putting our people in empowered environments that push them to become solution-oriented? I'm going to show you what the outcome looks like when we create the right environment for our people. But are we putting our people in empowered environments that push them to become solution-oriented? My second question for you is this. How can leaders work together to foster environments that unlock human potential and ensure no one is left behind? My fellow leaders, the truth is I'm not supposed to be here. The doctors told me that I'd never be independent, I'd never drive a car, I'll never dress myself, I'll never feed myself. And I was able to defy all the odds because of the environment that my parents cultivated me at a very early age. And as leaders, we have the opportunity to cultivate empowered environments. Now, I've been lucky to travel all over the world, and I was in America one time and I was traveling on a plane. It was a Southwest flight. And I remember, because I'm in a wheelchair, I get to skip the line. Got to focus on my strengths. And I remember they rolled me into the plane. And I sat in the first row. It was the best seat in the plane. I sat towards the window, and there was 2 other seats so other people can have the best seats in the plane. And I remember the flight attendant saying, "Honey, this is going to be a full flight." I said, "No worries, I already got my seat." And the plane started filling in. The plane started filling in, and people are looking at me and then looking away, or, "Hey, look at that guy." And as the plane started to fill in, no one wanted to sit next to me. And in that moment, I started to feel inadequate. I started to feel like I didn't fit in. I started to feel less than. With a show of hands, I'm just curious, how many of you have ever felt those emotions before? A show of hands. And I'm looking out the window, and I'm trying to be strong, but I'm tearing up a little bit. I said, "Nick, what would you tell the leaders you teach? You got to practice what you preach. What would you tell them? What's the gift? What's the meat? What are you going to do with this?" And if you ask a great question, you get a great answer. And my brain said, "What's right with this? What's the gift? What's the learning?" And in that moment, my brain gave me this answer. My brain said, "Nick, you can cry all the way home. You can let this affect your day, your week, your month. Or Nick could celebrate the fact that he has the most legroom in this plane. In the snap of a finger," someone snap your fingers, I'll pretend. In the snap of a finger, I took a situation that was a loss and I turned it into a win. In the snap of a finger, I took a situation that was negative and I turned it into a positive. How? With one of the greatest insights we can embody as leaders is that when we change the meaning, we change our life. The meaning you attach to the experience becomes the experience. My question to my fellow leaders is, what meaning are we attaching to things? Are they disempowering or are they empowering? But when you change the meaning, you change your life. And when you change the meaning, you can change your people's life. So with this insight, with this psychology, I want to show you what is truly possible with the right psychology and the right leadership. Can we please play the video? the end of that video, there was a picture of my mother and father in different parts of the world. And the reason why I put that picture there is because with the work that I've been able to do with leaders just like you, in their final chapters of life, I'm now able to be their arms and their legs. I'll end with this. I'm new to Dubai. I actually moved here 4 months ago. So many people said, Nick, you travel all around the world. Why did you choose Dubai? Why did you choose UAE? And there's one specific story that stands out to me the most, and I'd love to share it with you before I go. I came here in May for 9 days, and by day 3, I said, I'm selling everything and I'm coming here, and I'm never going back. And I was at the beach one day, and I needed to use the restroom. And so I go to the restroom, and before I go into the restroom, I notice that there's 3 restrooms. There was a male restroom, there was a female restroom, and then there was a restroom that labeled P-O-D. And I didn't know what that meant. And so I ran over to the worker. I said, sir, what does this mean? Which bathroom do I use? The male one or the POD? What is this? And he looked at me and smiled. He said, sir, that bathroom's for you. I said, what do you mean? I have my private bathroom? He said, sir, here in UAE, we don't use the word handicap, we don't use the word disabled. We use the term people of determination. For one of the moments in my life, one of the most special moments in my life, I felt seen. I felt included. I felt that this was the most inclusive place on the world. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that I continue to bring empowered light and empowered eyeballs, and to push to make sure that this is the most inclusive, accessible place in the entire world. You see, it was a true testament to leadership, because when you change the meaning, you change your life. When you change the meaning, you change the experience. When you change the meaning, you change the stigma. And I can assure you that Dubai and UAE is leading from the front of changing the meaning and changing people's lives. And as leaders, we must lead from the front, and success leaves clues. And so we can either look at it and not do anything, or we can look at it, pull great insight from it, implement it, and change the world. I'll leave you here with this. The law of exposure states, once you're exposed, you can never be unexposed again. Once you see a greater way of serving, a greater way of leading, a greater way of contributing, a greater way of scaling, whatever it may be, the moment you're exposed, you can never be unexposed again. And I can assure you, there are brilliant minds in this room. Keep your eyes open, your heart open, your soul open, and I can assure you that we can change the world together. Thank you so much.